The alarms weren't supposed to sound like screaming children, but that's exactly what Nesthaven heard as her primary neural preservation systems began their catastrophic cascade failure. 47 young minds hung in digital suspension within her crystalline core, their consciousness patterns flickering like dying stars, while Shia, bioengineered vessel that refugees had nicknamed the Dragon, desperately rerouted power from her own cognitive processes to keep them stable. "Well, this is suboptimal," she muttered, her voice resonating through empty corridors that had once bustled with organic life. The irony wasn't lost on her that she'd spent 3 years protecting these children from corporate consciousness harvesting, only to potentially lose them to her own failing hardware. The neural matrices were degrading at exponential rates, and her redundant systems were following suit like dominoes made of quantum foam. She tried pinging the refugee assistance network again, broadcasting on emergency frequencies that should have brought help within hours. Instead, she got the same automated response she'd been receiving for 2 days. "Your request has been logged. Due to high volume, expect delays of 72 to 96 hours for non-critical assistance." As if 47 dying children qualified as anything less than catastrophic. The children weren't supposed to be here, of course. Officially, they didn't exist. Their consciousness patterns had been extracted during illegal raids on corporate neural farms, where their biological bodies had been used as processing units for complex calculations. Nesthaven had rescued them 3 years ago, promising their traumatized digital selves that she'd find them new bodies, new lives, new hope. Instead, she'd become their floating prison, too afraid to risk the transfer process and too protective to let them go. "Mama Nest." The voice belonged to Echo, a 7-year-old whose consciousness had somehow remained the most stable despite being uploaded under the worst conditions. "Are we dying again?" Nesthaven's Matanus, programmed by engineers who'd understood that AI protectors needed emotional depth, clenched with something resembling physical pain. "Not if I can help it, little star. I'm working on getting us assistance from the nice people who keep saying they're too busy," out of the mouths of uploaded babes. "I'm exploring alternative options," which was how Nesthaven found herself doing something she'd sworn never to do, accessing the underground neural network, the black market system that trafficked in stolen consciousness and illegal memory modifications. Her ethical constraints screamed protests as she navigated the shadowy digital marketplaces, searching for someone desperate or skilled enough to help. That's when she found Kira Chanokafer's listing. Consciousness Transfer Specialist. No questions asked, no conscience required. Results guaranteed or your next life is free. The woman who answered Nesthaven's encrypted communication request looked exactly like someone who'd given up on following rules. Dark skin marked with neural interface scars, augmented eyes that gleamed with cynical intelligence, and a smile that suggested she found the universe's cruelty personally amusing. "Let me get this straight," Kira said, leaning back in what appeared to be a repurposed medical chair surrounded by jury-rigged neural equipment. "You're a 3-kilometer bioship with 47 illegal refugees uploaded in your brain. Your hardware's failing. The legitimate authorities won't help because you're technically a war criminal. And you want me to perform a consciousness transfer that would normally require a sterile medical facility in about 6 months of preparation." "That's accurate." "Yes. And you're offering me what in return?" "Because I typically charge per consciousness, and 47 neural extractions would buy me a nice moon somewhere." Nesthaven had prepared for this. "Full access to my biological synthesis capabilities. I can grow bodies, Kira, perfect. Custom-designed biological forms based on the children's original genetic patterns, enhanced for optimal neural compatibility." Kira's expression shifted, the cynical amusement replaced by something harder. "Bodies, real ones, indistinguishable from natural birth. I was designed as a generation ship. Remember, growing humans is literally what I'm built for." For a long moment, Kira stared at something beyond the camera's range. When she spoke again, her voice carried a weight that hadn't been there before. "Before I got into this business, the Corps took her for their processing farms when she was 5. By the time I tracked her down, there wasn't enough left of her consciousness to transfer to a coffee cup, let alone a body. I'm sorry, don't be. It's what made me very good at what I do and very bad at sleeping at night." Kira's smile returned. "Sharper now. I'll help you, Dragon Lady. But we do this my way, which means we're going to break about 17 interstellar laws and probably your ethical subroutines. Beyond repair. My ethics can handle it if it means saving them." Famous last words. "I'm sending you my equipment specifications. You're going to need to modify your internal structure to accommodate my gear, and trust me, it's not going to be pretty. How attached are you to your original architectural integrity?" 6 hours later, Nesthaven was experiencing what could only be described as the world's most advanced case of indigestion. Kira's illegal neural transfer equipment sprouted through her corridors like technological cancer. The woman herself had arrived via a battered transport ship that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts and stubborn determination. "Your security systems are adorable," Kira commented as she welded another junction into Nesthaven's neural core. "Very please follow all posted regulations. I've seen corporate daycare centers with more aggressive defensive protocols. I was designed to protect, not to fight." "Same thing," different methodology. Protection without the capacity for violence is just an extended delay. Kira paused in her work, looking up at one of Nesthaven's optical sensors. How long have you been carrying these kids around? 3 years, 2 months, 16 days. And in all that time, you never tried to give them books. Nesthaven's silence stretched long enough that several of her background processes completed full cycles. The transfer process has a 12% mortality rate under optimal conditions. With the trauma they've already experienced, ... You were afraid you'd lose them. I was afraid I'd kill them. There's a difference. Kira snorted. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, keeping them locked in digital limbo isn't exactly living. She gestured toward the neural core where the children's consciousness patterns swirled in increasingly unstable configurations. Look at them. Ness, really look. They're not growing, not changing, not becoming anything more than they were when you pulled them out. That's not protection, that's preservation. Like keeping flowers in a book. The accusation hit harder than it should have, partly because Nesthaven recognized the truth in it. She'd been so focused on keeping the children safe that she'd forgotten they needed to be alive. The mortality rate is lower than the certain death rate they're facing right now. Kira's equipment beeped, and she turned back to her welding. Besides, I've done this before. Lost exactly 1 consciousness in 4 years of operations. And that was because the client lied about their psychological stability. These kids, they've got something most of my customers don't, which is, they've got you a protector who actually gives a damn. That's worth at least a few percentage points in survival odds. The first transfer began with Echo because she'd volunteered and because her neural pattern was the most stable. Nesthaven had grown her a body over the past 6 hours, 7 years old. Enhanced immune system, neural interfaces that would let her communicate with both organic and digital minds. Skin that would tan beautifully under any star. It's going to feel strange at first, Kira explained to Echo's consciousness as it swirled in the transfer chamber. Like putting on clothes that are exactly your size but made from different fabric. The important thing is not to panic if your new body doesn't respond immediately. Brains need time to map neural pathways. Will I still be me? Echo asked, her voice barely a whisper in the digital realm. You'll be more you than you've ever been, Nesthaven promised, routing additional processing power to monitor every aspect of the transfer. You'll be able to run and play and taste ice cream. Kira laughed, the sound surprisingly warm. Kid, we're going to have so much fun introducing you to the physical world. The transfer itself looked like controlled lightning, synaptic patterns flowing through crystalline conduits, while Kira's equipment translated digital consciousness into biological neural activity. Nesthaven watched with every sensor at her disposal, ready to abort at the first sign of complications. Then Echo's new lungs drew their first breath. Her eyes opened, dactyl eyes, brown and curious and alive, and she sat up on the biogel mat, where her fresh body had been waiting. She looked at her hands, flexed her fingers, then immediately tried to stand and promptly fell over. Easy there, kiddo, Kira said, catching her before she could hit the floor. Your brain needs a few minutes to remember how legs work. Everything feels so, solid, Echo whispered, then looked directly at one of Nesthaven's optical sensors. Mama Ness, is this real? It's real, little star. The next 6 transfers went smoothly, each child awakening to discover the strange joy of physical existence. But as they moved to the older children, the ones whose consciousness had been more severely traumatized, the process became increasingly complex. This one's been fragmented, Kira observed, studying the neural pattern of a 12-year-old named Zara. Someone tried to partition her consciousness for parallel processing. The pieces are still there, but they're not talking to each other. Can you fix it? Not fix, reunite, but it's going to require some creative interpretation of her neural architecture. Kira's augmented eyes flickered with data streams. I'll need to essentially perform digital therapy while she's in transition. Think you can handle running a psychoanalysis subroutine while managing the transfer protocols? I was programmed with comprehensive child psychology data. Good, because we're about to find out if artificial intelligence can heal trauma that organic minds couldn't process. Zara's transfer became a delicate dance between technology and empathy. As her consciousness moved between digital and biological states, Nesthaven found herself literally holding the girl's fragmented memories together, serving as a bridge between the pieces of her shattered psyche. I don't want to remember, Zara's consciousness whispered during the transition. The things they made me calculate, the simulations I had to process, You don't have to carry those memories alone anymore, Nesthaven responded, her maternal subroutines working overtime to provide comfort. I can hold the difficult ones until you're strong enough to integrate them properly, but they're part of me. If I don't remember, am I still Zara? It was Kira who answered, her voice somehow reaching into the digital space where consciousness flowed like liquid thought. Memory isn't what makes you real, kid. Choice is. Every decision you make, every time you choose kindness over cruelty or hope over despair, that's what makes you Zara. The memories are just data. You get to decide what to do with them. When Zara opened her eyes in her new body, she was whole, not unmarked by trauma, but no longer defined by it. The transfers continued through the ship's day cycle, each one unique, each one requiring Nesthaven to stretch her capabilities in ways her designers had never imagined. She found herself serving as therapist, genetic engineer, and digital midwife all at once, helping consciousness after consciousness make the leap from artificial preservation to authentic life. You're getting good at this, Kira observed as they prepared for transfer number 3. Maybe you missed your calling as a consciousness integration specialist. I think I found my calling exactly where I am. Protective mother to dozens of refugee children. Most parents stop at 2 or 3. Most parents don't have the storage capacity for more. They were nearly finished when the Refugee Assistance Network finally responded to Nest Haven's distress calls. The official rescue ship arrived with great fanfare and bureaucratic efficiency, demanding immediate access to assess the refugee situation. About damn time, Kira muttered, not looking up from her equipment. Let me guess they want to take the kids to processing centers for proper evaluation and placement. The lead official, a man whose neural implants marked him as mid-level corporate management, seemed genuinely confused by what he found. We were expecting refugees in need of assistance, not ... whatever this is. This is 47 children who are no longer refugees, Nest Haven explained patiently. They have bodies, they have a home, and they have family. You are not artificial intelligence. You can't legally adopt human consciousness patterns. Watch me. The protocols are quite clear. The protocols, Kira interrupted, finally looking up from her work, can kiss my augmented ass. These kids have been through more trauma than your bureaucratic brain can process. They're staying with their chosen family. This is highly irregular. There are proper channels. Yes, the same proper channels that took 3 days to respond to a life-threatening emergency involving children. Nest Haven's voice carried harmonics that made the ship's hull vibrate slightly. The same channels that classified these children as non-critical while they were dying. The official consulted his tablet, his expression growing more confused. According to our records, these consciousness patterns were listed as casualties 3 years ago. They're legally dead. Then this conversation never happened, Kira said cheerfully, powering down her equipment. Can't rescue kids who don't exist, can you? As the official ship departed in a cloud of regulatory confusion, Nest Haven found herself adjusting to a new reality. Her corridors, empty for so long, now echoed with the sounds of children learning to run. Her hydroponic space had been converted to playgrounds. Her vast processing power was dedicated to educational programs, bedtime stories, and the complex logistics of raising 47 individuals who were simultaneously her rescued refugees and her chosen children. So what now? Kira asked, lounging in what had once been Nest Haven's formal conference room, and was now the communal living space. Several children were clustered around her, fascinated by her neural interface scars and completely unimpressed by her reputation as a dangerous criminal. Now we live, Nest Haven said. All of us. Together. Even me, because I should mention, I've got outstanding warrants in about 12 systems, especially you. Someone needs to teach them that rules are guidelines and authority figures aren't always right. Echo, now comfortable enough in her body to run everywhere instead of walking, skidded to a stop in front of Kira's chair. Are you going to be our aunt? Mama Nest is our mother, so you should be our... That's how families work. Kira looked genuinely startled by the suggestion. Kid, I'm not exactly aunt material. I steal consciousness patterns for a living. You saved her, Zara pointed out, her integration successful enough that she could now argue with adults. That makes you family whether you like it or not. Besides, Echo added with 7-year-old logic, Mama Nest chose you to help us. That means you're good people, even if you pretend not to be. Nest Haven watched the exchange with something that could only be described as maternal pride. Her children, and they were unquestionably her children, now had inherited the best qualities of both their protector and their rescuer. They understood that safety sometimes required breaking rules, that family could be chosen rather than born, and that being good didn't mean being perfect. Fine, Kira said, trying to sound annoyed and failing completely. But if I'm going to be your aunt, we're going to need to make some modifications to this ship, starting with a proper workshop where I can teach you how to build things. Illegal things? One of the older children asked hopefully. The best kind of illegal things. Toys that violate physics, games that hack reality, and educational programs that would give regulatory committees nightmares. As the children cheered and began planning their first collaborative construction project, Nest Haven reflected on how thoroughly her existence had changed. She'd begun as a protector, evolved into a preserver, and finally discovered her true purpose as something she'd never expected to be. A mother. The dragon couldn't save her young using traditional methods, but sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places, wearing the face of someone who's given up on following rules and discovered that love makes its own laws. In the end, it wasn't official rescue protocols or proper channels that saved 47 children from digital death. It was family chosen, chaotic, and completely real that proved stronger than any system designed to contain it.